I've covered Steve Bannon long enough to know you don't just flip off what he is saying. Do you think that this is actually something that they're going to try to attempt, and should they?
No. No. I mean, Bannon has no formal involvement with the Trump White House, and if you look at all the stories, the White House declined to comment. The White House rarely declines to comment, so this is him out on his own.
I would argue that the White House response ought to be, no, the president is going to follow the Constitution. He will not be running for a third term.
No formal involvement.
I don't know.
With the White House.
I'm going to dispute this just a little bit. The weeks leading up to January 6th, Steve Bannon was saying all hell was going to break loose if Donald Trump was not necessarily, they didn't certify the results for Donald Trump. Look at what happened. We had an insurrection. Since then, and I mentioned, and as I will, as much as I can, is he has not only pardoned 1,600 people that are out on the loose and waiting for their orders. And when Steve Bannon says that Donald Trump is potentially going to serve another term, he is sending a signal not only to those 1,600 people that rioted and caused an insurrection at the Capitol, but all of MAGA. And so my hope is that we will have a Supreme Court that will end up stopping this. But I actually think that Steve Bannon truly believes that this is the case, and he is sending a signal to MAGA that Donald Trump should be the president of the United States in 2028.
Let me play, you brought up the Supreme Court. I'm going to play for you what Amy Coney Barrett said in an interview recently when she was asked about this issue. Listen.
The 22nd Amendment says you can only run for office for 2 terms.
True.
You think that that's cut and dry?
Well, that's what the amendment says, right? After FDR had 4 terms, that's what that amendment says.
She sounds like someone who thinks that this will come before the court and doesn't explain more on the legal sort of underpinning of this.
Well, there's not much to explain. It's pretty clear. I mean, you can't.
I agree.
So I don't know why you would want to talk it to death.
Why do you think Steve Bannon keeps saying this, and that Trump keeps putting the 2028 hat on the desk and all that?
He keeps it in the on the hats and stuff because he's trolling his opponents, and he knows how crazy it drives them when he does these kinds of things. Bannon, I don't know. I don't know him personally. I don't know him well at all. Maybe he believes this. Maybe he doesn't. I just know what the Constitution says. I know what most Republicans would think about it, and I know what the Supreme Court would do about it. So I don't really think this is serious.
Just to get it on the record, Scott, if this came up and there was a real attempt to give Trump a third term, would you be for it or against it?
I'm long on the record of opposing violating the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution.
Let me. This is kind of interesting. Maggie Haberman, she's covered Trump for a very long time, so she understands how this works. And she agrees with you on the trolling. She says he clearly enjoys knowing that it bothers Democrats that he says this, and there's a trolling aspect to it. But the thing with all of his trolls is they start out that way, like Canada as a 51st state, and then he socializes them. They take on a life of their own, or he breathes more life into them. I've covered Trump as well. She is right about that. Steve Bannon is not in the White House, but he's constantly speaking directly to Trump, to people around Trump. These things do take on a life of their own in Trump's own mind. And often that is all that is needed, the permission structure, to figure out one way or another how to make things happen.
I mean, they've already pretty much understood what the vulnerable points are when it comes to the institutions. As I continue to say, the institutions are only going to work if the people within them are willing to defend them. And considering that he put together this Supreme Court, and he did it for a very specific reason, because he knows the things that he tries to do that are outside the lines, that if it gets there, he understands that he has crafted the perfect scenario, and it's checkmate. And so, for people to take this seriously, I think we absolutely should. And I'm sorry, I don't understand this game that we play with him. Is like, oh, when he says things that are very dangerous, he's kidding. But then when he actually does it, it's like, oh, I guess he meant it. It's like, I'm not going to play the whole what does he mean game and, oh, he's just trolling, when he has shown time and again that he's very serious about the things that he says. Well, everything is a test.
Yeah.
And he's just going to continually see how far he can get with everything and just see how far he can go. And yeah, considering how hard it was to get him out of the White House before, why do we think that this would be any different? We see who he admires. He admires dictators. The dictators don't leave. So, why would we think that he was joking?
What does this say about the support for, a J.D. Vance, who's widely seen as perhaps the next person in line, that someone like Steve Bannon continues to suggest that it's not going to be the next guy. It's not going to be Don Jr. or J.D. Vance. It has to be Trump. Let me just play a little bit more from this interview with The Economist where Bannon kind of expounds on that.
The only way President Trump wins in 2028 and continues to stay in office is by the will of the American people, okay? And the will of the American people is what the Constitution embodies. And so I think we're going to be in good hands there. We need to finish what we started. And President Trump is the instrument, a providential instrument to finish that, to finish this job.
Lydia, if you're J.D. Vance, what are you thinking right now?
I think he thinks that Steve Bannon is trolling. I don't think he takes this seriously the way that we are at this table. That's just the reality. And even Bannon said he thinks it's the will of the people. If the will of the people is clearly not supporting that whatsoever.
The
So
Republicans need to speak out, and I'm not sure we are going to get Republicans actually telling Trump this is not a good idea, or Steve Bannon. And I think that's
Trump
the
is not
problem.
saying it's a good idea. I mean, he said just a few weeks ago, I'm not running in 20. I mean, he's
it's a
poo-pooed
clickbait
this.
headline.
He has poo-pooed this.
But you would call up Trump if he is considering this and tell him this is a bad idea.
If he asked me, I would tell him, you can't do this.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.